First, obviously, Terrence Bradley's a liar, right?
Yes.
Come on, he just is a liar. So the big question of the day was, when did you know the relationship started? And when did you know? So I'll just go through the attorneys real quick. I think Ashley Merchant, she's one of those attorneys who doesn't know when she's won. Right? So like even at the end, the judge is like, okay, give me all the text messages and we're done with it. Oh, but I still want to say one more thing. At that point, you shut up because you've won. He said, give me them all and we'll put them all in. But now she's still arguing for them to put it ridiculous.
Right.
I think, unfortunately, because she went first, she ate up a lot of the good questions that other attorneys were going to ask to get to the point. And that's what they kept saying. Asked and answered. Ashley Merchant said it. Another thing I'm going to say, I love Ashley. I think she's a fantastic attorney. She's great looking too. And she's the reason why we're here.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, she's the reason why we're here. She's the one that got this information, right? He unfortunately, and I'll be to be honest, I think he was trying to honeypot her.
100%. Yeah. He was trying to suck on it. Right.
Of course, it's a classic honeypot. You know, I got some information. You get the beautiful, blue-eyed, big-breasted, golden-haired attorney to come and say, tell me all your secrets. Yeah. And he's just hoping to just get a sniff, and he's saying everything, right? Attorney-client privilege, who cares? Who cares? Just tell me in bed, right?
Exactly.
He got honeypotted, and he gave everything up. But the problem with her is that she didn't know how to ask the questions in a way to just get to the freaking point. Even at a point, I don't know if you saw earlier when the judge had to say, isn't this what you really want to ask? Like, right? This is how you do it. Just ask it another way. So I think they had more here to win, but I think they left a lot on the table. And I think it's because unfortunately Ashley Merchant didn't do as good of a job and it didn't seem like she was prepared at some points too. Because in TLA, you know this, whenever you cross-examination, I already know the questions I'm going to ask, and I already know the answers to those questions. Now, there's maybe sometime I'll ask a question where the answer should be obvious, but I don't really know. But that's a risk. And those questions are few and far between. But if I know I'm going to ask you A, B, C, D, and then if I know you've already said something with that answer, for instance, didn't you tell me that relationship started back in 2019? If you say no, we're going to text message. This, here it is. Here's why I said that. She's looking through. I don't know. I got to look through text messages. Here's my phone. What? No. Have that ready. Boom.
She could have her trial notebook, right? Already prepared, already paginated. Boom, 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 boom.
I'm slapping them right in the face with it. Boom, there it is.
Yeah, and the texts were not in order. The text, like she had a big pile, and it's just like none of that was labeled or prepared correctly, so she couldn't find what she needed at the right time.
It just makes sense to but again, that's part of trial preparation.
Yeah.
You know you're asking the questions. You know what questions he's going to be more likely to lie about, and as long as you have it ready, soon as he tells a lie, you read it. Didn't you say that? Next question. Did you say that? Next question. And it goes nice and fast. And at a point, even the judge was like, you only got another 10 minutes of this. Come on, 10 minutes. Because she wasn't prepared. She wasn't prepared. So, but now at the end of the day, the issue, and this is the $1 million question. What's this come down to? Well, the disqualification can only come from the conflict of her getting a kickback, right? She hired Wade. She gets a kickback from Wade. And in other words, the money, instead of her getting cash, she's getting elaborate trips. Their only defense to that is that she paid Wade back in cash with no receipts. And the only way you can verify that, or the court can verify it, is that through her credibility, right? Wade and Fani Willis's credibility. So that's what these two witnesses are really for, to hurt their credibility, say that may not have happened. They're not being honest. So if the judge finds that Wade and Willis were lying, I believe the judge will disqualify them. And the reason why is because they would have perjured themselves or lied in furtherance of trying to not be disqualified, right? What's the reason why you're lying about something that's so obvious? But if he doesn't find that they're lying, or there's not enough evidence to prove that they're lying, or if it's 50-50, then I know a lot of people are going to be sad in the chat. Fani Willis is going to win, because the court, if it tie goes to Fani Willis, and if he finds that it's even, he's going to find that, okay, well, this is even, so she's allowed to stay on the case, and he may write a nasty letter to the bar or something to complain about it, but that I think is likely to happen, because she's the queen of the South, and it's you guys think it's going to be easy for this judge, who's a brand new judge, who's been there for a little while, to take down the sitting DA in Fulton County, it's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Now, I'm not saying he can't do it, but I think there's enough here where he can say yes or he can say no, and I think he's justified either way. The last point,
and let me just jump in. It needs to be stated that a lot of times, so much of this is in the judge's discretion, and a lot of times, if a judge hates you, I mean, that can kind of be the nail in the coffin. But this is not the case in their situation. You know, he donated a little bit to her campaign, kind of worked up under her, so they have a very good relationship, right? So it's not like he has a bone to pick with her. He's not like he's some staunch Republican and is just going to try to screw her. But yeah, so I totally agree. Well, keep going.
No, I think you're 110% right based on that background. But then the last piece of this, I think that this was going to come to the head because this week Friday, you guys will be covering it Friday. This week Friday, the judge is going to have to look at two things. Number one, closing arguments, right? And however they're going to do that's going to be crazy. But the one issue is that you guys heard about the GPS and stuff that's coming out, right? The GPS that was found. So the judge wants to do two things. First, he's going to determine if that thing is even relevant to this case. It's going to move the needle. And
wait, let's go back. You said the GPS?
The GPS, the cell tower stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. Wait, let me jump in. Did you well, no, go ahead, because I want to ask you about this. Apparently they Fani filed a motion or a response or something today. But I don't even know about it. I haven't read it or anything, so I didn't know if that related to.
Yes, it does. It actually does. So, so the defendants came. You guys know, defendants came with GPS data saying that the cell towers that were being used were about Willis's house and Wade's house, and that's how they were attributed to track back and forth. So, for those of you who don't know, when you use a cell phone, it connects to various towers. So, when you're driving, you can see the various towers that it connects to, and you can trace the towers that it connects to, even if you're just using data. I mean, your phone is actually even face off. You're still using data and still connecting to those towers. So they were able to track his phone through that way. But there's a good thing and a bad thing with that is that even though someone's house is at a tower, like near my house, that covers, a couple of miles, maybe a mile or 2 miles. So you could be kind of anywhere in that facility. So that was what Fani Willis's motion against it was that this doesn't, it's like GPS that comes in 6 feet.
Right.
He's saying, hey, I could have been downtown. I could have been at a friend's house. Anything within that range. So they're saying the cell towers, even though it does show what it shows, it just may not, he could have been downtown partying and it just happened to be near her house or something, right? Which I don't believe, obviously, but that's but that's what their response is. So the judge now is going to take that data and say, well, number one, you got to authenticate it, right? How we get it, make sure it's true and accurate and all that stuff. Then you have to have your expert testify to the authenticity of it, but the accuracy of it, and then they get to cross-examine. So hopefully Friday we'll get that little display about this. Now it's going to be funny because usually it's the DA who's trying to get that information in for cases. Now they're going to be arguing to get it kicked out. So it's going to be weird for the DA's office to want to get that stuff kicked out. So if the judge finds that cell phone data to 12,000 texts and 2,000 calls for people who are not in a relationship, and I'm going to ask you, TA, you do all this, you do family law. If you got a female client comes in and says, I'm going to get divorced from my husband because that hoe that he texted her 12,000 times and called her 2,000 times within a 6-month period. Is that not evidence of a relationship?
100%. 100%. Not even 99.
That's a lot.
I don't know. I don't text my wife 12,000 times in a year. He's doing it in like half a year. Yeah.
Exactly.
So obviously the judge is going to see if that's going to be. So right now, if I were the judge, I would disqualify her. If everything was just even, and the reason why I would disqualify her, I don't believe you paid them all in cash, which is possible. Let me make it very clear. It's possible for her to have all that cash and pay in cash. Being an attorney, having clients, I've had cash before. It happens. I remember my friend, he got something like $350,000, but it was a drug case, and the guy, but he got $350,000 in cash. He was like, "Don't you remember that case?" I was like, "What case?" He's like, "Oh, "Oh yeah, $350 in cash." And don't forget, he's got a count and all that stuff. I was like, "You counted 350," but again, it's that.
Yeah, I know so many criminal defense attorneys have counters. That's when you know.
You have them in the bank.
As a counter is like, all right, a money counter, yes.
But I don't think Fani Willis had that type of money. I don't think she was doing
Yeah.
that type of thing because she took out $50,000. But anyway, that's neither here or there in terms of this. I think if I was the judge, I would bounce her. I would bounce her because of the appearance of impropriety. You don't have to show it, but you have the appearance. Here, you do have the kickback, you do have the money, you do have the appearance, and then you have the 2 witnesses saying that the relationship started earlier, 2 witnesses saying it started late. With that, I would say I don't believe her. I believe her girlfriend. I believe her. I believe
2 Chainz. I do too.
I believe 2 Chainz. I believe 2 Chainz was correct. I believe 2 Chainz doesn't have any reason to lie. And I believe 2 Chainz actually tried to fight the subpoena, didn't want to testify, but testified. And I believe she's the only person who I can generally say testified truthfully, even though I think the attorney, Terrence Bradley, I think he's a liar. But I think the truthful parts that of his testimony were the text messages he sent to Ashley, saying about when the relationship started, the trips and all that stuff. And I think in context, when you look at those statements, you can tell the relationship obviously preceded his hiring at the DA's office. If you take that against the testimony that they put forward, I think that they were lying or they weren't being truthful. With that said, I would say that just because of the appearance of impropriety, she should be disqualified from the case. But I don't believe the judge is going to do that because I think for him to do that, he may feel he may lose his judgeship because that's
a good point.
But that's the power of the local DA there, because again, don't forget the judges are elected, so he may, he has an issue. And another thing I do want to mention, I think Terrence Bradley was being so deceptive because don't forget the DA's office went after him last time. I think he was being so deceptive and so protective of Willis and Wade because who prosecutes him for the perjury? Who prosecutes him for the SA? Who prosecutes him for all that? All that stuff that happened in Fulton County, right? Because now we know we got 2 people who are saying that he assaulted them. We got money missing. We got all these ethical violations. And if there's any criminal issues, who prosecutes them? Even some of the civil issues. So I think
great question. That's a great point.
I'm thinking he's thinking, shit, I'm messing with fire here with the DA's office. I'm ratting him out. Now I'm under the gun because at any point they can turn around and be like, well, none of those statements that you made, this, and those SAS accounts, we're going to be looking into criminal investigation for those. That's very possible, right? Those SA accounts, right?
100%, because and apparently the women showed up to testify. They weren't allowed to testify, but if that happened, let's say 2 years ago or something like that, it could well be within the statute of limitations.
Well, we know it's within 2 years. It was 2020 when this happened. So it's in the 5 year, because usually it's a 5-year statute of limitations for sex assault.
And also on the stand today, it was intimated. It was interesting. Ashley asked Terrence, didn't you get a call from Gabe? And he was like, yeah. Terrence was like, yeah. And then didn't right after Nathan called one of your friends. And then Terrence was like, yeah. And then didn't right after that, you went out and hired 2 attorneys and you called me. So it's like, what was that about? What was Gabe calling you, Nathan calling one of your friends that would have you run out, hire 2 attorneys and then call Ashley? Like, what's going on with that? So there's kind of like some behind the scenes stuff as well, right?
Oh yeah.
So who knows if there was any like threats or anything? And there's a lot on the line. People have been threatened for so much less, much less.
And Boots actually followed up on that after. I call Steve Sada Boots because he had those like nice, suede boots. And one thing that he had mentioned, he was kind of like, because he went after Ashley. One of his very last questions to Mr. Bradley was kind of along the lines of, has anybody contacted you from the prosecutor's office? Has anybody contacted you before you testified? Because I think he's trying to peel back on that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, he wants to show if you remember the last couple of days, Steve Sada always asks a couple of questions about, like, remember he said, did you go to Washington? Did you meet with President Biden? Like, he always wants to get the overarching political aspect to it, which I think is good, which is good for his client because that's what his client wants.
Exactly.
But I also think if Steve would have started today's questioning, it would have gone so much better.
Right.
Because if you notice, his questions were very precise about this one. He had, even before he started, make sure he has this one, because I'm going to be asking about these specifically. But he was cut off at the knees because she had asked the question so poorly before that he couldn't really ask him again. So I think Steve, but I think next time when they do this, they got to at least take some straw poll and say, listen, we're going to start with Steve to let him get the questions that we need answered, and then you can play around whatever you could do next. Right.
I think Ashley will probably go last next time on Friday. She'll probably
she messed
go
it
right.
all up today. It was the
Yeah.
reason why everything was so crazy because she messed it all up. And I feel bad for saying that because she's the honeypot that got us to the table. But
Exactly. It really would have been better if Steve or somebody else could have started because the judge was just saying, hey, man, ask and answer. We've gone over this. Let's keep it moving. And she also got the most time out of any of the other attorneys. So if you would have given Steve all that time, he really would have worked Bradley. And Bradley's demeanor was different with Steve than it was with Ashley. Terrence, when he was talking with Ashley, he was very kind of defensive and fighting back and withholding and, lying. With Steve, I think he apologized to Steve like 4 or 5 different times. Oh, I apologize. Kind of kowtowing to him. And so if because of that demeanor and he was much less willing, I think, to fight back with Steve, because he's probably more intimidated by Steve. Steve could have got a lot more information out of it.
Yeah, but I also think Steve's approach to the questions were different. Ashley was like, hey, kind of tell me a speech. Hey, what about this in this area? Where Steve was like, on blah, 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 did you do this? Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Did you have communications with Mr. Wade about the relationship between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis? It's a simple yes and no.
He was going in on a mission. He knew exactly what he wanted. He saw everybody else go first. He saw what was missed. Like, he even tried to move in. I think it was exhibit 26 and 27, right? Because Ashley didn't admit or get one of them admitted correctly, or at least in full. So that was interesting too.
And for the audience out there, I like to take cross-examination as a commando raid.
Mm-hmm.
You get in, you get out, and let the other side explain, right? You want to get your points off. And number 2 is that witness is not really saying anything. I don't think I need that witness to say on questions yes or no. I don't need them to explain nothing. I don't need anything. Yes or no. Did you kill her? No. Did you do whatever? It's all leading questions. And as soon as they start wanting to go into more stuff, I'm cutting them off. No.
Right.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
That's it.
That's Steve. Steve is like that. Steve is he questions like I would question. But I think Merchant is questions like, well, how do you feel today? Do you remember sending me this? Blah blah blah. No. Do you remember? You sent me this text message that said blah 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 blah. Yes or no? And now you see that it's even the way you ask the question is different. So that's why I think the tone. And I also think let's just keep it real. Let's keep it real. He wanted to hit. He was sending those text messages. He was trying to hit. Let's keep it real. You know he was.
He was trying to get some favor, right? He was trying to set an inside track, right? Trying to be nice. I scratch your back, you scratch mine, right? Yeah.
Let me come on. Let me read the document to make sure it's all good. He knew what was going on. He was trying to get deeper and going down there to meet them in person. Like, come on.
Exactly.
It's the classic honeypot. She won't admit it. She's, because, don't get me wrong. For those feminists out there, I understand she's a great attorney, but she honeypotted him. I think it's clear. I think if you're from Atlanta, you're going to say he was honeypotted, right? You from there, right?
100%. You are exactly right. You're exactly right. How do you think they're going to do the cross-examination with all these different attorneys? It's going to be a shit show. Everybody's stepping on each other and making these points. How do you think that's going to go down?
Well, it's closing, so I'm thinking what they're going to do is they're going to try to figure out the way I would do closing, because again, it's the judge who kind of already knows this. The judge already knows.
That's the thing. But you have to remember though that this is being televised, right? So it's like you're really doing it for the public, because the judge probably already knows what he's going to do. The judge will know what he's going to do before closing. He'll already know. The closing is not really going to sway him either way. But this is on TV. Everybody's looking. Again, when I started this stream up, in the middle of the stream, and I looked, there was like 12 channels streaming it. We had 14,000 people in here. So everybody's watching this stream, man. And so these attorneys want to get their stuff off and look good in front of the cameras. If there were no cameras allowed, the closing might go a lot faster, right? Everybody.
But the thing is that you hit the high notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the high notes here are simple. They're obviously lying. This is the reason why. Blah, 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 blah. And you just go right into it. Everything that could be verified with documents, they verified. Here it was. They verified this. Whatever could be from documents, you got to rely on their good word. But this is why their good word means nothing. And you bring out the witnesses, the conflicts, and you call it a day. You really, I think the case in turn is simple, but I think it's the political aspect of it that's given it so crazy. Because I think 90% of the time, this would probably be to be fair and honest. 90% of the time, this disqualification would be laughed out of court. Yeah, get the hell out of here. Let's keep it real, TA. Right?
You're right.
Let's go. She's sleeping with the lead prosecutor. So what? Get the hell out of here with that.
Yeah. Exactly.
But now since it's Trump, then it's kind of like, oh, well, we may have an issue here. So it's just the nature of the beast.
You got to take it a little bit more seriously. Yeah, AV, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, how much time do you think each person's going to get? Because if they're starting at 1 o'clock, we could all be streaming till like 7 p.m.
No, this judge is not going to like that. So what the judge did is give them two options. One, they'll each get a certain amount of time, maybe 5-10 minutes. So because it's like 16 of them, or I think 15 or 16 of them, but they'll get maybe 5 or 10 minutes to run that. So that won't be too long. Or they can take one big chunk of time and have one or two attorneys make the arguments for that one big chunk of time. And then the prosecution will have the opposite amount of time, because they're not going to do it they'll do it defense and prosecution. So the prosecution will have a certain amount of time, but then the defense will have the exact same amount of time chopped up into those individual pieces, which makes sense.
Because the judge is probably not going to want to go after 5 p.m. for closing on this, man. The judge will start at 1, but I'll give y'all till 5 o'clock maybe, and then we're out. Because the judge is already going to know. Maybe he won't know what he's going to do, but it's improbable that the argument is going to sway him. He might need more time to think about it. I don't know when he's going to issue his ruling. That'll be interesting.
Well, usually if it's a no, it'll be from the bench. Generally, when anything, if it's a no, it's from the bench. But if it's a yes, I think he may put it down on some paper and have his poor law clerk type it out. But because again, you have to put the argument, and there's a lot of evidence here for this crazy hearing. But I think if he's going to deny, he can just deny from the bench. Because don't forget, he even said next week we got 2 murder trials starting. We got this.
Yeah.
So they don't have enough time to be playing around with this little foolishness. And then they got this trial, and these are defendants to go through. So I think they played enough with this. I think the judge knows tonight. How he's going to roll. Right. And then I think you just got to go through the motions with it. So
if he does end up deciding that Fani's off, what do you think that means to the underlying case? Do you think it's going to get reassigned to another county, or do you think if it is reassigned that the new county is going to pick it up, or are they going to just decline to prosecute it? Kind of what's your take on it?
Well, see, this is, I think you guys have the same issue we have up here in New York. We have huge district attorney's office, and then these minor little bitty ones around. So
exactly.
So for instance, in New York, Brooklyn District Attorney's Office is the largest one in the United States. Number 2 is Queens, and number 3 is Manhattan. Like they literally run down like that. We got like the top 5, 3 out of the top 5 are all in New York City, the largest district attorney's offices. So they have a lot of money and funds to do 19 people RICO cases and stuff like that. But even in Atlanta, you still had to bring other people in. But I don't think those other counties have DA offices as major, because look, just so everybody understands, Fulton County is the crown jewel of Georgia. That's where the most people live. That's where the most money's at. So that is where it's at. That's where you have the most attorneys, the largest district attorney's office, and the most money. If they have to move that to somewhere, you have to find a DA's office that, number one, can either get paid from the state to fund this prosecution, or find the money themselves, which I don't think any of them will have to do. Then they got to be able to accept this case, right? Then you're talking about trying to make it close, because you don't want to send it to Savannah or something like that, because now people got to travel to Savannah to go do it. So you got to keep it close to Atlanta. And then after that, who's close? That's a Democrat. Because
exactly.
If a Republican gets this case, I'll say this: put a 1 in the chat if you believe a Republican district attorney will continue on with this case.
That's an excellent question.
Exactly.
Or put a 2 in the chat if you believe a Republican district attorney will drop this case like a hot bag of garbage.
Immediately.
Yes.
Immediately. They might have a press conference in front of the courthouse steps to announce that they're not going to pick it up. And all of the counties, like Fulton County is a special county because it's really like a black county, but it's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty democratic because it's so black. But all these surrounding counties that have money, whether it's Cobb, whether it's Cherokee, Gwinnett, even something smaller like a Forsyth, they're all super conservative. Super conservative.
So just imagine this case going to Cobb County.
Yeah, they're going to be like, please give it to us. Please give it. They want this case so bad.
They look like heroes, right?
Yes.
Be hugging them.
Yes.
So good. Oh my God.
That's exactly right. Maybe I'll get invited to the White House if I decline to prosecute, right? Everybody wants this case.
The benefits.
Yes, they want to be the one to save Trump. I did it. I saved Trump, right? So I think that's an excellent analysis of the future of this. So really, it's Fani or bust. If we're honest.
If she goes, I think the case goes, because I think I think the judge will have no choice but to transfer it to a Republican DA, and I think that Republican DA is going to be the hero. He's first, he's going to say, "Hey, I'm going to look at it objectively and make sure this is all good because we want to make sure and look at it." And then, it'll be, sometimes things just don't work out. We don't believe we can approve the case.
Mm-hmm.
Dropping it with prejudice. And then Trump would be like, hey, this guy's our attorney general.
Exactly.
There you go.
The cabinet.
That's how the rules are. That's what Fani's looking for. Fani's looking for, I convict Trump, and this might be a good, but I think she's ruined that. But there would be a good attorney general, first black woman, because Biden's going to be looking for a black woman. First black woman,
That's the thing, man. For Fani's career to continue, she really needs Biden to win this presidency. She really, really does. Because, I'll be honest with you guys, down here in Atlanta, in terms of like black women, Fani still has some support. I don't even want to make our sisters look bad, but a lot of sisters really like the bravado and telling people how it is and who's going to check me, boo. And, I'm independent and you're not going to break me. So they like that. And a lot of people, a lot of black women would still support Fani. Now black men, not so much. I can absolutely see Terrence's career being absolutely destroyed. Nathan, there'll be some black people that hire Nathan.
They'll forget Nathan, but Terrence, how could this, number one, how could he get past the ethics hearing, right?
Yeah.
He's
that's a good question.
Right to the ethics board, right? He gave up his client's secrets. He gave up his everything, right? He gave it all up to a woman who got a pretty face and big breasts. That he gave it all up to her in text message form.
Oh
his
my
license
God.
His license gotta be gone. Like how could this man hold a license for what he just did? How could he? Think about it.
If anybody's gonna lose a license over attorney-client privilege, it has to be him.
He gave it all up in text message for nothing.
That's the thing.
It's like revenge. It's like, he was all pissed off because of what we found out of how everything kind of ended with them. And really, I was thinking about that at the beginning. Like, how did the partnership dissolve? Why did it dissolve? Now we know.
And one thing I want people to understand, people keep saying, they're like, oh, the judge, judge found it wasn't attorney-client privilege. No, you got to understand. He texted Merchant things that were absolutely attorney-client privilege. He said he got the information that he was texting her from his client in furtherance of his representation in the divorce. He admits that. That's it. Now, the reason why you can't use it in court, obviously, because you get the privilege. But that in itself alone, the confidentiality and the privilege, he's violated it all. So I believe he understands his license is essentially like a fart in the wind. It's gone. He should have a
license. That's exactly right. And they are setting up all of these ethics committees for all these supposed ethics violations for Fani as well. They are really trying to punish Fani. And I don't know how far they're going to get with that, but they've even set up a special committee down here to review prosecutors and this and that. They are really out for their 1 pound of flesh for Fani.
Yeah. Well, listen, the higher up the mountain you climb, the steeper the path, right?
Yeah.
So, she's up there at the top and she wanted to play the big dogs. Trump comes hard. So I get it. I get it. But, if she holds on to the case, she needs to keep this case to keep her career. If she loses
exactly.
Case, I think she's done. Because this is an embarrassment now. But if she keeps it and gets a conviction, she could turn it around. So.
Oh my God. If she gets a conviction, man, she will. Yo, come on. If she gets a conviction in this case, it might be Fani 2032, man.
She's gonna linger for years.
She's it, man. That would be crazy if she got a conviction out of this.
But now you see, and that's the reason why they're fighting so hard. Just exactly how what you said. She gets a conviction from this. She's a made woman.
Yes.
That's the reason why she has to fight so hard.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So we are going to watch how it all plays out.
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!